So last time I reviewed a budget vehicle, it was the HHS18302. And this one I recommend for fathers and children if they're going to share a vehicle. So it was great because it has speed adjustment and it has the ability to modify. So for adults or parents who want to do that kind of thing, but still want to have it maintain lower speed or adjustable speed for their kids, it was the perfect one. If you're looking for a vehicle that is specifically for a child and you don't want to have to monitor them and just give it to them, hand it to them, let them abuse it, it would be this guy. And so this is the HS18302. HS stands for HoSpeed, and so we'll get into details on the different aspects of this and why I would recommend it. So we're going to get started. Before we go further, one aspect of this is that the price is just super low. So right now you can buy this HiBoxing 18302 for anywhere between $45 and $55 shipped. And so I'll send links in the description below, but they're not affiliate links, so welcome to pick whatever source you want, but those are a place to start as far as where to get this. I realize the looks of the car matters a lot to you guys, so I wanted to go over the different options as far as the body styles. So these four have the same chassis and same electronic components. These two do not. Although I like these Chuggy style a bit better, I have read reviews or seen reviews of these having issues with their electronics and them breaking down prematurely. So I won't speculate into why or the accuracy, but I did want to just avoid that risk altogether and then choose one of these four. So the reason why I chose these guys is literally just, I feel like they're easier to clean. You can just wipe these down with a towel and you're good to go. Whereas this style, although it looks kind of cool with a figure in there and it's inside a cage, I figure if you're playing with this in the mud or the grass or the dirt and it gets all crummy in there, it just gets dirty and a little harder to clean. I mean, it's not really that hard to clean. You literally just take off the pins, remove the body, and then run it under warm water, and then wipe it down and you're good to go. But these ones just that much easier to take care of, and this isn't something that I plan to spend a lot of time with. So I just wanted something that was really easy to work with. These bodies I have replacements for and I haven't had to use. I've used the original one and crashed it a bunch of times, no cracks or anything like that. But if you do need to replace the body, they're about $5 to $6 shipped, at least last time I checked. So the benefit of this car, again, is just the replacement parts are just really, really cheap and readily available. There is something unusual about this car that I wanted to go over that I felt, and some people felt was a bad thing, but I actually found that it's not that bad, or actually maybe even preferred. Generally, the shell needs to come off and the battery is housed inside the chassis. But in this case, the battery compartment is actually in the bottom, inside this case. So the bad news is that you need to bring one of these. You need to have a screwdriver with you every time you want to remove the battery to replace it with either a new one or to be able to charge. But that's actually not too bad. I'd actually prefer to unscrew one screw than to remove 4 clips and risk losing those. Not that they're expensive and not that they're hard to find, but it's just it's annoying when you're losing clips and having to replace them in the field. So having this cover plate is actually not a bad idea. You may be wondering about that screw, which may be even harder to find the size. Well, this thing is actually set in place pretty good. I mean, I'm shaking it like that, and it's still on there. So you're not very likely to lose that screw in the field. Some of you might be wondering, why not ditch the screw altogether and just have this tab hold it in place? I do not advise that. I did try doing that, but this thing comes way too loose without the screw. So just when you're driving it, just normally that thing can very likely fall off. So I would continue to advise using that screw there. The connector that's being used for this budget car is not the normal red JST that you would see with other things like HiBoxing. This one is called the JST SM. This is the connector piece that you'll see and is fairly standard, but it's not as commonly used. And so when you're buying replacement batteries, make sure that you use or you look for batteries that have this JST SM connector. So if you do end up getting this car, I don't want you to be surprised that the battery will run hot. Extremely hot if you run this at high throttle for a majority of your run. And so what that tells me is that the ESC that's in here is not really sufficient for the amp draw of the motor. So what does that mean in English for an everyday person who's buying this for the kid? It doesn't mean much. It just means that it is going to possibly prematurely wear out the battery sooner than anticipated. So you may need to end up buying batteries more often, and that battery is not going to last you forever. If you do run this moderately, then you're not going to get it as hot, but in my experience, the battery does get quite hot, and so a larger battery would solve that problem. Something with a higher C rating and higher milliamp hour rating would allow it to absorb more amps than the motor is drawing. Unfortunately, the compartment in here is what limits the size, so you're not really physically going to be able to do that without having to open up the tray and kind of reroute the wire and maybe move the battery on the inside of the body. I can't imagine majority or any of you would really do that. I haven't really done that either, but do expect that the battery could run hot. It just means that you may have to replace the batteries sooner than later or more often. But so far, it hasn't been a problem. I've been using the original battery just fine. Another thing that a hot battery means for you as a consumer is that you're gonna have to let that hot battery cool down before charging. So this is not the kind of car where you're gonna run it until it runs out of batteries, then charge right away and play again, charge right away and play again. You're gonna have to let that battery cool significantly longer than you normally would. A battery shouldn't be hotter than 130 degrees. So most of us aren't gonna have thermometers. I happen to do it just because I'm kind of a crazy nut about it, and I did take the temperature gun and shoot at it, and it was over 130 at times. Again, it depends on how hard you run the throttle, how long you do that for, the terrain that you're running in. If you're trying to do it over grass, it's not gonna do well. This scale size car with these wheels doesn't do well on grass, even if it's very thin like this. So you're going to want to run this vehicle more on either gravel or something like asphalt. As far as runtime is concerned on the HS 18302, you can expect about 20 to 25 minutes, which is on the long range as far as RC car goes. Short range, I would say, for an RC car would be about 7 minutes, and that's what I've experienced with the WO Toys 144001, which is a common car that people use to modify for speed runs. This is definitely not it, but just to give you an idea of runtime and what 20 to 25 minutes really means, that is definitely on the high end. These are friction shocks. These are not oil-filled shocks. I did purchase some oil-filled shocks to replace these just for the kick of it, but I found that the way they attach down here and up at the top isn't the standard way to do it, and it just the eyelet for the shocks I had didn't fit snugly. I'm sure those of you that are more handy than I am can probably manage to fit something in there, but this HS 18302 isn't designed to have aftermarket parts that are specific for this vehicle or that people commonly use to modify. So again, this vehicle is literally a budget car that is very durable, that people use as is. It's not something that people necessarily tweak. I will take off these pins just so you can see what's underneath. So normally with a hobby grade vehicle, you would see all these components exposed, and people like to be able to replace those with either upgraded parts or the stock parts. So with this, you're looking at this, and all these molded pieces are specific to the components that are housed underneath. So you're going to be hard pressed to find components that fit perfectly under this shell that aren't the stock components. So again, this is not something you want to modify or that is easily modified. As a $55 car, you probably wouldn't really want to spend the money on that anyway. But the benefit of having this all covered is that it just protects it against water, against debris. I mean, obviously there's vent holes for the motor and water can get in there and damage things, but it's just a little bit extra protection beyond the normal body that would cover the components. So in here is the motor. In here is going to be the servo to adjust the steering. And in here is the all-in-one ESC and receiver combo. So this antenna is the receiver for your remote control. And speaking of which, the on button is going to be right here, and that's a tab. And this, I did not find that I would move that by accident in crashes or anything like that. It did seem like a vulnerable place because normally the switch would be up top and harder to access as the body is over it, but that didn't seem to be a problem for me. For those who do want to modify this, even though I'm saying I don't advise doing that, you may wonder what kind of servo this has, and it does have a 5-wire servo. So those of you who like to modify and tinker know that for aftermarket receivers will require a 3-wire servo, so you would have to replace the servo with a 3-wire one if you were to go that route. Even though this is a cheap car, they do call this or refer this to as hobby grade. So what hobby grade means generally is that components can be replaced, meaning they're readily available that you can buy to replace if you need to, unlike the toy grade ones that you buy from Walgreens, CVS, Target, or some sort of big box store. So a lot of these components can be found to be ordered online if you need to. They do come from China, so if you're not living in China or near China, it's going to take a while to get to you. But those include the bumper, they include the shocks, the tower. There's several other pieces. You can buy a new ESC receiver combo if for some reason that goes bad, and of course wheels. I've run this a lot, and the tread is still in very, very good condition, which is more than I can say for some of the other RC cars I've had. So I'm not going to speculate into what kind of composite this is, but obviously it's some sort of rubber. But the tread is pretty good, so you will have to replace it eventually, I would assume. But I'm kind of surprised how good the tread is, even after all the mileage and abuse this has gone through. But one thing I wanted to talk about is the adjustability of anything that's on here that can be adjusted. So you cannot change the ride height, meaning this piece here, you can't adjust it. There's only one hole. I suppose you could drill a new hole, but I wouldn't really advise doing that. And the post up here, you also cannot adjust in or out to change the active suspension. What you can change, which I had tried, but it's really of no real purpose, is the body posts. There are several holes here where you can increase it in height, but you wouldn't necessarily want to do that because what happens is the shell comes up and then you have a bigger gap here, which aesthetically doesn't look that good, and also it just exposes the vehicle to more debris or possible damage. A lot of the components you see here are plastic, and so you're wondering how vulnerable they are. And so one thing about plastic versus metal is that metal will bend, but doesn't bend back, whereas plastic bends and snaps back in place if it doesn't break off completely. So there are benefits to plastic, and again, I've run this through crazy conditions. I've ran this over staircases. This is dropped over the top of a slide. It's hit curbs, it's hit planters, it's gone through a lot of abuse. So, and nothing has broken at all. But one thing that is generally vulnerable is the cup, right? I don't know if you could see it. We're gonna use the screwdriver, but it's right here where the CVD goes into the differential. Sometimes the CVD, which is this rod right here, will pop out of this cup on some other vehicles. In this vehicle, that has not been a problem, which is great. So that hasn't come off. These pieces have not broken. The arms haven't broken. It's literally just very, very durable, and it doesn't look very durable, and so I'm not really sure why, but it's in really good shape, and it just takes a bunch of abuse. Possibly some of it may be where the bumpers are situated. So there's quite a bit of room between the bumper and the chassis itself, and there's quite a bit of give. So this is absorbing all the impact on both sides, and it just takes abuse after abuse after abuse. So again, if you're looking for a vehicle that you just give to a child and don't have to worry about it breaking and then not having to monitor them while they're using it, this is the vehicle to get. Again, it's the HoSpeed 18302. You may be wondering about the range of this vehicle. The range I haven't measured, but it's not that good, and you suspect that from the size of this teeny tiny antenna. So the range is not something you're going to be proud of, but as a budget RC car that is for your child, that you're probably going to have at least, you know, within viewing distance of yourself, I don't think the range is going to be an issue. Just don't expect the range to be anything substantial. Some of you may be curious about the transmitter that comes with the RC car. So this is it, and it takes 3 AA batteries. I do like to label these on RC cars just so that I know where I'm storing my rechargeables, or if I need to replace them, I know what I'm looking for. And I put the model number on the back here. That's just something I like to do myself. So as far as the size of this, it's a good size. It also allows you to steer with your thumb if you're one of those people who like to do kind of a one-handed driving and steering method. And it does come with this foam cover. That's stock. It's not something I modified or added myself. So it does add some sort of comfort level. It doesn't stick out a whole lot. It's not that large. So it is a good for child hands, but adults will be able to use it just fine. And it does have the steering trim, and this is not a dual rate, meaning you cannot adjust how far left or how far right the wheels turn. This is merely a trimming dial. So if it's veering to the left, then you're going to adjust this a little bit to the right. If it's veering to the right, then you're going to adjust it a little bit to the left, just so that the vehicle can go straight. And that is it. So brake and then acceleration. All right, there's going to be some bonus footage. So I wasn't originally going to do this, but I thought it might be kind of fun if I held it like a football and threw it as hard as I could down that asphalt lane. So this is going to prove how durable it is. I don't have the batteries with me to run it afterwards, but in the description I will talk about whether it survived. And I'm like 99% sure it'll be fine. So we're going to go, ready? Uncut, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now you know I throw like a girl, so we're going to try that one more time. I don't play football, I'm more of a ping pong kind of guy, but we're going to try to throw this again. As my excuse, it's hard to hold the camera and throw this at the same time, but we're going to try that one more time. Okay, so after I tossed that, something did happen that I noticed. So we're going to go and take a look at that. And this is that you'll notice that this is kind of swinging really easily. And that's just because this tie rod came off. So this tie rod is still in one piece. And all I got to do is put it back on that ball right there. It's going to be hard to do with the shell still on it, and you're not going to want to watch me do that. So I'm going to go and just pop off the top and then pop that back on, and we'll be good to go. In case you did want to watch me do it. Oh, it did bend. So it bent a little bit. Actually, no, it didn't bend. So I thought that was bending at that 45 degrees, but I'm looking at this one, and that's exactly the same. And so I think that might actually be normal, unless they both bent. Oops. It's always hard to do this in camera. There we go. Yeah. Oh, another thing that happened from that toss is that this arm came off that guy. And again, nothing is broken. We just need to wedge my hand in there, and we're gonna pop that. There we go. She didn't show that in the camera. So this cup just needs to go back on this arm, or on this little nub here. I forget what that's called. There we go. Snap that in place. So servo's good. The wheels are fine. And it survived. Go ahead and turn on the transmitter. We're going to see the light blink. There we go. So when it's blinking, it means it's looking for an RC car. So we're going to turn on the RC car now. Move it back further. There we go. Turn the dial, make sure it turns. Oh, okay. Moment of truth. We're gonna try this out, okay? Ready? Set, go. Definitely the main highlight of the HS18302 is durability. If you're looking for something that will just take on abuse after abuse by children or adults, then this is by far the vehicle that I would choose. This is just, it'll hit curbs, it'll hit planters, it'll go over stairs, it'll pop over your head, and it'll just be just fine. So take care. If you have this vehicle already, or you have any other questions about it, feel free to ask the questions or tell us your experiences with the car itself. I think it would be valuable to have some conversation in the comments. So take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my dad's video.